Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AI Biz Hour with Andy and John. And today it is Friday, April 11th, 2025. The year is moving along steadily, and we are all watching history happen with AI and getting involved in every aspect of our lives, slowly but surely, some more than others. And today we are brought to you by Virtual Synergy Inc. What if you could free up hours in your day without sacrificing productivity? Successful entrepreneurs know the secret. They delegate. If you're looking for an employee to handle your administration, there's no better employee than a virtual assistant from Virtual Synergy Inc. Virtual Synergy Inc. connects you with skilled human virtual assistants who handle your administrative work, emails, and scheduling so you can focus on what truly matters, your business. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm looking for the purple pill, but I will find it in a minute. I go the other direction, but it looks like you started with the computer today, which is cool. We'll still get the virtual synergy. We'll get that post in the jumbotron so everybody can see it. And we're live streaming, so we are good to go. And I'm so excited. We have a great guest coming. And by the way, I just got a note from there's Manus has a Manus Fellow program. I have no idea what it is. I just saw a link, but John, we should totally sign up for that. And so I sent you the link. We can do it online, or we can do it later, or we should, if anybody knows about it, that'd be great conversation. But yeah, kind of interesting. I just came across the little feed for me.
I'll be playing with that this weekend. I actually have Manus, and I have yet to start doing tooling with it because I'm going to wait until I really know exactly what I want to do with it. But that sounds super exciting. And what's been going on with you, Andy? What have you been doing with AI, and how has it been benefiting you? I know that you're doing a lot of stuff with it with your work. I just saw actually Alex North Star talk about he created a calculator that shows the actual time saved for his clients, which was pretty amazing. I think that's a great idea.
That's I love that. That's cool. I got to find that one. I haven't found. I didn't see that yet, so I'll look for that. I did post about an hour ago my workflow. I was talking to Timo in the back channel. Timo's going to be posting something on my blog, and he said, you're generating us. How does it do it? And I go, I spent basically 6 months every day tweaking my prompts so that they would generate content for me. So I have a 10-week calendar with 7 days of prompts for each of the 10 concepts of the 10-week calendar. I use one of those prompts to generate the 4-paragraph article, and then I use the title from the article to generate the image. Then I use the article to generate a LinkedIn post. I use then all of that to create 15 viral X posts. I content and I review everything, edit it all, make sure that it's all good to go. And then I preload that the night before. And so usually all the daily work is preloaded. And I posted that workflow in a post just because I had an extra 5 minutes and said, here's the workflow that I actually do. I don't have an agent that does it yet. I still do it manually because I'm still tweaking the prompts and the output. And it every day it gets like a percent or a tenth of a percent better, especially because I use one tool and I have one thread and I reuse the same thread. And I started with Chat GPT. I've used the 3, the 3.5, the 4.0, the 4.5 model, the mini, the 1.0, the blah blah blah, and I picked the one that produces the best content that is closest to the way I talk. And I loaded this. I loaded PDFs of my blog because I've got a couple thousand posts on the blog, and it's lots of people read it, and I use that to create a one thread that produces output. So that's my primary use. My secondary use is I use it to review content minutes and contracts. And so if I get a contract or an RFP, I use it to review the RFP to create the outline of a response. Um, and then I use it for every, the list of one-off things is, huge. I've got a ton of one-off stuff that I talk about or that I check. How did this work? What happened here? What like one of the most recent ones was, what are all the ranks of a samurai? Samurai is just one word. There's like a whole bunch of above and below that. What were all those words and what did they all mean? And then how did they relate to each other? So it's just easier to do research with the AI than it is to, Google will give you a list of places to go look to find the answer. And AI basically is just a way for you to ask a question and it just gives you the most reasonable answer. And so in that way, it just shortens the cycle for me to get faster information. And that's what I use it for. How about you, John? I know you're building stuff and you got apps and agents and what are you doing?
Well, I'm talking to our guest, our special guest today, Andy, and there's little technical issues. So
No worries, I can keep going.
okay.
I got you. I got you. Okay, so all right. So if you are using AI for any of those purposes, for content generation or creation, or for AI or generating images, take the mic. I'd love to hear. We'd love to talk about that. I did want to talk about Manus. Let me do another quick thing I can do. Let me find my link.
And Andy, I just want to remind everybody to please go check out our website, AIBizHour.com. That's AIBIZHOUR.com. Go to Andy's account, follow Andy, and also join his newsletter. Please join my newsletter. You can go to my account. There's the AI Biz Hour community. You join the AI Biz Hour community and you're a dev, and you will get access to the a Discord server. And back to you, Andy.
Yeah, and you should also join John's newsletter, because what he does is he takes the whole thing that we're working on. So he takes the entire show and then he turns that into a summary, and he sends out an email summary of every single day of all of the stuff that's happening. So you should totally join his newsletter. You get a summary of the day's show. So if you miss one, you're not going to miss all the crazy news. Like, hey, let me give you a couple things. Here's what's happened. Decagon, which is a leader in conversational AI agents for customer support, right? They made the Forbes AI 50 list. AI-driven identity theft on the rise. Captain Obvious. Better Business Bureau said that tools like ChatGPT and scammers. By the way, supposedly, I was listening to Sean Webb. I don't know if you guys read Sean Webb's books on mind happiness and Roadmap to Your Mind. I think is the latest one. You should totally read those books. I don't get a dime. I don't know Sean. I've never talked to him, but I love his books. So you should do that. 3 seconds. It takes 3 seconds of audio. So if you've spoken on a space for 3 seconds, or like right now, I'm talking on for 3 seconds, they can replicate my voice. So, fraud coming forward. I think we've talked about, keyword and having some kind of, call response that only you and your family know the answers to. DocuWare integrates AI into enhance their partner services. Well, okay, there you go. AI accelerates superconductor research. You could just insert blah, blah, blah research, blood research, cancer research, viral diseases, viruses, organizational change management, legal content. AI accelerates blah, blah, blah research, every research. Right? How can it not? It basically can take every single thing anyone's ever written and then give you the best version of whatever everybody else has done. Natural language processing. Yeah, well, of course. That's what all these AI models are. And by the way, I wanted to say thank you to John Carlos, because he gave me the idea about 3 months ago. He said, just take ChatGPT, turn it on, talk to it, and just work through things. And so every night when I take my walk, I take a weighted vest and I go for a long walk. I turn that on and I talk to it the whole time. My wife thinks I'm a little nuts. She's like, wonder what the neighbors think, but I really don't care. So thank you, John Carlos, for that brilliant idea. You should totally do that. Listen to John Carlo, sign up for his stuff. He knows a ton about, searches and ads and all this stuff. And he's a new dad, so you should sign up for all of his stuff. Sign up for his newsletter and everything else. Meta releases Llama 4. Yeah. Okay, cool. I've already got open source Llama 4 model on my little, my own LM Studio system. I also have Dolphin 3, Dolphin 2.8, which are uncensored models, which can respond with some crazy things. So NVIDIA unveils a new Ultra chip, Blackwell Ultra chip. I kind of feel like we're back in the days of the Pentium and AMD, and this week the Pentium is now going this fast, and then next week it's going faster, and the next week it does more of them, and there's 2 cores, and it's kind of crazy. Leveraging IPU GPU for AI training. That is a brilliant idea. One of my architect friends told me that if you have a AWS, right, Amazon Web Services model, you literally can buy CPU cycles from other big companies who have purchased large blocks of compute at a smaller scale or a big scale, but they don't use it. And so they have idle time. So you can actually buy their compute cycles at a lower rate than you can from everybody else. And you can buy those compute cycles and put them in it for your application purposes at a really significantly discounted rate. So it totally makes sense that if you've got GPUs that are leveraged and that they're idle, that you should leverage those things for more important uses or more different kind of uses. So that's super interesting there. I see we have a bunch of kind of normal folks that are joined, which is awesome. We've got TVD, which I learned a ton about yesterday. I didn't know anything, but now I do, and it's awesome. Russ, Hoops, Sharon. We have an international cast here of listeners today. I think only 2 or 3 of the people who are in the audience are even in the United States. How about that? Everybody else is outside. I do see SolarView AI. That's pretty cool. We've got a company who's joining us, or somebody who's part of the company joining us, which is pretty awesome. And remember, if you need virtual help, go to our sponsor, Virtual Synergy. They provide VA services. I know they do training, and I know some of the people are using them for AI tasks and other kind of office and other kind of work tasks. And I have never heard a bad thing about them yet. So you should follow them, and you should totally engage their services. I know if you go to their webpage, which I will get to in a minute, but since I'm talking, I'm not double duting. Usually when John talks, I'm posting and getting all the background stuff.
If you want, I can take it here for a little bit, but go on, continue. I apologize. I'm just
yeah, no worries. It's okay. That's why there are 2 of us and not just one, right? Take this as a little bit of, pro tip. If you're going to host a show, sometimes there's technical difficulties. Sometimes things happen and you just have to roll with it. So be together, work as a team, and make stuff happen. So yeah, if there's somebody who wants to come up, grab the mic, tell us what they're working on, how they're doing stuff, what they've got. I see Jack's grabbed the mic, so that's fantastic. And then
Jack is our guest speaker today. Actually, we're having some technical issues, but we finally got him going. So
there it is. Fantastic. Okay, well, John, I am going to stop talking. I'm going to go back into the background, and I'm going to do all the stuff behind the scenes and make sure that everybody comes up on stage. We got all the stuff posted in the purple pill, that we're giving all the right credit, and we're getting all the background stuff. So take it away, John.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate it. And yeah, this is a 2-person team event, and the best spaces, I think, are consistently have 2 people on board, and I can't thank Andy enough. So today we have a special guest. His account, he was having some trouble logging in, so he's got the account that he has now. He has been in manufacturing for more than 20 years, and he's very, very involved in AI right now. And so he's got a varied background that's really specific, and I think it's super interesting because I'd like to talk to him about his experience with coding as well as robotics. So, would you like it, Chris or Jack? And how are you doing today?
Hey, John, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, solid, totally solid.
Okay, that's good because I don't recommend using a computer for X-Space. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I was having I'm trying to convert my account. This Joe Jack account's like an old account that I already had on X, and I started jumping into AI spaces with it, and I'm in the process of outing myself. Um, so I was working on the other account trying to get that to work, and it just wasn't functioning. So
So,
apologize for that delay,
so
but glad to be here.
excellent. And the two of us, we uh been been working on some of the tech and schools stuff, and that's how we got to know each other. I was curious. I always start with people's backgrounds and what have you. Just if you want to share with us, otherwise we can get right to the nuts and bolts of it. But just kind of, what got you to where you are in terms of, were you always interested in engineering, or your background? How did that kind of inform you where you are today? I think it's always good for people's memories and whatnot to kind of have an anchor when they hear someone speak, and also it's really nice to put people in the context of what they're doing currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. My history is a varied one. In high school, I started getting interested in computers and engineering, and if I recall, it was a chemistry teacher that was like, "I'll bet someday you're going to be an engineer," and I was like, "I'm going to be a pilot." And fast forward several years later, and I was working on my aerospace degree at Rutgers University, and ended up, essentially establishing myself in controls and vibrations theory. And that took me into the world of industrial automation. So, fresh out of school, I worked for a big distribution company, and we serviced the um, petrochemical industry. So I did a bunch of work and specifications, instrumentation for companies like BOC gases and other large international corporations. And I was like, "Man, I don't want to do sales. I want to do engineering. I got to get out of this." And I went to work for an OEM down the street, a system integrator who developed and designed control systems for industrial automation in the pharmaceutical industry. So I spent several years doing work for Merck and shearing plow, doing validated systems that were, drug delivery systems. So it was process automation. And that was everything from writing software to control big tank farms. So, one of the projects I recall was for glaucoma medication. And I remember that one failure on just one tank was over $100,000 in lost product if just one step in a process went wrong. So it was kind of a big deal. You had to get everything exactly correct, and it was challenging. And learned a lot about validation and processes and procedures, because it was super critical that you follow those. Otherwise, Merck could have had a shutdown from the FDA if something went wrong. So I spent several years in that space doing automation and designing doing some electrical engineering, designing the control systems, and then programming them as well. And I essentially wanted to kind of move on and try some different things. So I moved into the packaging industry and got a job at a company uh, that really was the pioneer that started pouching. So, if you think of something like Jack Link's beef jerky, you got those little tear open pouches. The machines that I electrically designed and programmed are the ones that make those pouches. So I spent several years working for a packaging machinery company out of Florida, and kind of honed my skills. And we started getting into robotics and applying robotics on the machinery. So the machines got pretty advanced. They were originally designed in the 40s during World War II, and rapidly evolved into what we call multi-axis servo systems. So if you think of breaking a robot into a bunch of pieces and individually controlling the servos for each motor, these machines could have up to 64 axes of motion on them. So it got into advanced motion control programming, and then strictly robotics. So the robotics industry really started to take off, really circa 2010. So robots have been around a long time, mostly in the automotive space. But for small to medium sized industrial automation companies, robots really didn't start becoming fully adopted until about 2010. And the ones that were ahead of that time frame were kind of the leaders of the pack, and the mainstream original equipment manufacturers were using them in the late 2000s. And so I've programmed Epson Robotics, Fanuc, little bit of Yamaha, some Kawasaki Robotics, and then I went to the dark side and jumped into product development and sales and some marketing, and then on to business development. I guess I kind of fleshed out my career as a programmer and as an engineer, and was doing a lot of sales. And then AI came along, and I guess I was kind of missing programming. So, and John, that's where you and I met in that space and some of the trainings. And I think the big takeaway for me personally is the power that AI has to fill the gaps that exist in industrial automation. And that's kind of what I'd like to talk a little bit about today.
Awesome. And I just, if we circle back a little bit in that term, just to let everybody know that me in talking to you, I'm realizing the severe consequences of issues that if things are not exact and there's missing exactitudes on manufacturing, the consequences are in the physical world, whereas most software development, it's not. And so that creates a high level of exactitude, I would imagine. Do you want to go into that a little bit, and like what was your eye-opening moment, and that, and must be things tested again and again before they're implemented in a situation like that, because of you're having things that are moving around in the physical world can, if they don't go right, the problems can be expensive and also other issues.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, and it's very real. So it's interesting, in this AI space, a lot of the people that are online are software developers. And, if you think of software, it's like, I don't know, you pick any company, Google, anybody, they launch a package and it's like, oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And it's like, oh, well, we're sending out updates or we'll send revisions. If you do that in the industrial space, you're going to get sued. And you're going to be sued by companies like Procter and Gamble, and they're going to sue you for their lost production time if your stuff doesn't work. So the key aspect of that is really design specifications. And what I've learned with some of the vibe coding I've done, and some of the other programming that I've been involved with in the AI space, the first thing it makes me think of is, if you have a project, is outlining the project ahead of time, determining what the criterias of success are, and be specific. So functionalities, who's going to interact with the software, the cybersecurity requirements that go along with it. All of those things should be detailed out in great detail. And then once a software package is developed, it should be tested and vetted against that design specification. It's okay to iterate, but it must complete essentially what we would call in my industry a factory acceptance test. So, in industrial automation, you have a detailed design specification, you design to that specification, and then you test against that specification so that you're guaranteeing that you're delivering what you promised.
I mean, and the reason that that's not so often done with just software projects is just because the um the 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 stakes aren't at the same level. And how much extra work does that entail, or is it that you're just doing more planning, so when it comes to the nitty gritty it kind of maybe goes a little smoother because everything's set, and then you have a schematic for it which is very identified and kind of in stone, so anything that is an issue you can go back to it or you can hand it off to someone else, and there's not a huge learning curve. Because that's one thing that I hear about often, especially when you have multiple people working on something over time. It's kind of like with SEO and digital marketing. You can have these Frankenstein situations where they just hire one person, another person. Nobody knows really what's going on. Then you start looking at it and you see a lot of errors.
Yeah, that's you bring up another interesting point. And so, within a small to medium sized business, and even some of the larger ones, I mean, I've worked for companies that are $5 billion companies, and I've worked for some mom and pops. And communication's key. There are software packages to facilitate some of that communication. And if you're using design engineers, so I was an engineering manager for a while too. So I've run engineering groups, both large and small. And essentially what you do is you try to find complementary skill sets, and then you develop a team. And that team is dedicated to a specific project, and they often have many. But the how critical it is for those teams to communicate and manage that communication often requires having a project manager to oversee the entire project. Now, if you're a small outfit and you don't have the bandwidth to have additional project management, then usually you pick a team lead. And that team lead is responsible for the other team members to make sure everybody's staying on task. When you run into trouble is when you start to outsource. And when you begin to outsource, if you don't have a very clear set of expectations or requirements, that's when you start running into big trouble. And it's exactly what you said. It'll turn into a giant Frankenstein situation that eventually you'll have to go in and get control of. And in many cases, if it's whether it's software or writing software for industrial automation or a piece of equipment, you may find yourself having to rebuild the whole thing if you allow somebody to run loosely and gun slinging without managing that project, and most importantly, what those specifications and expectations of the end result are.
So are it sounds like that you're familiar with a lot of aspects of programming. What time frame additional, I mean, by doing it that way, what's the difference in terms of is it because on the front end it's so organized that on the back end it goes a little smoother, and it's just kind of implementation and then getting the bugs out, as opposed to kind of learning as you go along? Or I'm not familiar with the space at all, so I'm just kind of interested in understanding the logistics of it and the time frames and stuff. And then
Well, go ahead.
we can move on into what you what you would like to bring to the table. Sorry about asking.
No, they're actually really great questions. So, there's different styles of project management too. So in the industrial space, project management is really a little bit old school. The theory of waterfall project management is very organized. You start out with a schedule, a big Gantt chart. You have very explicit steps. You follow a very explicit design specification. Then the people are put to work. The parts are ordered. It's a very waterfall flow. And our industry over the years has started to adopt the techniques that software developers use, which is more a scrum management. it's sprints, 4-week sprints to design and develop components. It allows room for mistakes, but rapid development and rapid iteration. And for many industrial companies, they're not there yet. But the software development world is, and this is where I see both opportunity in bringing these two spaces together on a at a more grassroots level, and then also to learn from each other, because those techniques of following a specification and delivering what you promised versus, hey man, I'll figure it out as I go. So I'm not an expert in Scrum management. There are people out there that specialize in that. But what the industrial space is learning from the software teams is, if you implement some of those tools, you can bring products to the mainstream in a more rapid pace. It's the industries that are highly regulated, like healthcare, pharmaceutical, um, some of the military compliance that you have to do for military contracts. Some of those are very rigid, so I hate to call them old school, because they're very thoroughly practiced and very exacting, as you described earlier, but they don't lead to rapid product development. So I think there's a balance in between those two worlds where companies can be more competitive, because the reality is people bring stuff to market very, very quickly these days. And I believe that, these tools that we're learning in this AI space will help fill the gap, and also so there's a whole nother side to this, which I'll get into, which is the cost of resources and the availability of resources that's dramatically affecting manufacturing today. But hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. And there's one other thing I'd like to touch on, and is the idea that automation, everybody was afraid automation was going to take everyone's jobs. And you've been involved in automation for a long period of time. And, I did some research, and like 30% of all employed people are Googling, is AI going to take my job? There's a lot of concern about it, and so I would just would love to hear your experience of what's happened to companies when automation was brought in, because wasn't that the exact same conversation that everybody was having when automation was going into the factories, that everybody would be laid off?
If I had a dime for every time somebody said that, I'd be retired. So the reality is that and it's actually been 30 years I've been doing automation this year, and I've never once replaced somebody's job. So in most cases, what happens is and it was, by the way, it was the same for, just regular automation. Then it was the same with robotics, and now it's the same with AI. And it's really more a fear of the unknown. But the reality is, most manufacturers are always looking to scale and grow their production, and they usually can't keep up with the manual labor that they have. So, what happens is, when they add the automation, most manufacturers will then continue the manual operation, and they'll take key people that are interested in the automation, and they'll upskill them with training so that they learn the robotics. They then are now the senior technician with more pay, and they kind of get to walk around with a little bit of a badge of honor that they've taken the time to learn those new tools and skills. And they are often going back to the OEM manufacturers and often recommending improvements. And as those processes go into those factories, steps in the manual processes, we start installing manual, semi-automated systems that help operators reduce workplace injury, that type of thing. And the entire workplace becomes a safer and most importantly, a more productive manufacturing environment. And that's been true whether it's regular automation, servo motion, whether it's robotics, and we could talk about cobots, but that's a whole nother animal. Um, and it'll be the same with AI too. Now, I
So
do agree with the premise. The one thing I do want to say is I do agree with the premise that if you don't learn AI, you're going to be replaced by somebody who does, because you won't be able to compete and you won't be able to keep up.
So just for the folks in the room that might be a little younger, um, being you've been doing it 30 years, that means that you were there when Bill Clinton and the whole free trade thing happened, and everyone was, and then China is going to manufacture everything, and all of this known unknowns and unknown unknowns and unseen unknowns were discussed, and now we're at kind of this wild period of time. Just throwing this in because it's current in the news. What do you see happening? Because yeah, people like, oh, there's no way manufacturing jobs are coming back here, and China's got it all, and that's the way it is, and it's locked and sealed, and we all know what the future is. Based on your experience, because you're on the ground floor for this whole conversation and seeing it, what happened during those 30 years about manufacturing going offshore? And then to kind of give everybody context, because everybody here is about work and business. And I believe there's going to be a big uh, opportunity this times, who knows how, what, over the next, I don't know, this could be a 40-year, a generational shift of things. So I think it'd be very good for everyone's information to understand your view of history in this subject over 30 years, and then extrapolate where you think we're going in that direction, because well, everybody here is really hustling and looking for opportunities, and there might be opportunities and things that you never really thought of before.
So, and by the way, for other, folks in the space or other speakers, if somebody wants to jump in with their own thoughts and questions, I'm perfectly comfortable, entertaining those. So I don't want to dribble on too long, but what I would say about that, from my experience, and I've been pretty fortunate. A good chunk of my career was in, the pharma space, and then food and beverage, right? So things that kind of don't go away. They were always things that were needed. So those industries mostly stayed. They were international, but a lot of them that I was associated with stayed in the U.S. That being said, a lot of the customers that we built machinery for, a lot of their consumer products, and it was also true of the power industry, offloaded almost all their manufacturing to China. And that process started back during the Bill Clinton days and really continued throughout. So in my mind, while there's politics involved, international politics, like the red and blue of the United States really wasn't that relevant, right? Because it's really about the money. You have different players that take advantage of that, but the shifting of electronic development, almost all that was done in China. There's a lot of robotics over in China, but there's also a lot of manual production in China, just based on how many people they have. The companies in the US that were building automotives shipped most of their stuff to Mexico. And a large portion of companies like, I don't know, take Swisher Cigars, did a lot of their business in the Dominican Republic in free trade zones, by the way, right? So those workers, they start working, they make way more money than they do locally in their own countries. And then eventually they learn, hey, I can ask for a raise. I make more money and more money. So what happens over time is the ROI tends to get leveled, not equal to the United States, but the expectations on the return on the investments in those countries shrink over time. It's a bit of a law of diminishing returns. So for manufacturing in the US, in specific industries that weren't high tech, high value, that stuff got offshored. And I know plenty of people who lost jobs that were in the kind of quote unquote white collar field, because they worked for a company, a textile automation company, and all that stuff went to China. So, however, over the last year and a half, Our company, the company I currently work for, has been approached multiple times by customers interested in doing automation that's being reshored from both China and Mexico back here to the United States. So they all know what's coming and what battles are going to be fought. And they're, in their calculus are determining that it's going to be more cost effective to bring their production here to the US. And a great example of that is there was a company, a gentleman I met. He was the CEO of a company that designs and builds switchgear equipment for the power industry. And so those, you have a substation in your local neighborhood, and there's relay switching equipment in there that does all that. All that stuff was being manufactured in China. They're bringing all their production lines back to the U.S., and they're asking the company I currently work for to build out that automation for them so that they can build it here in the US. The challenge for the US is the cost of resources. And it's been a challenge, right? Our healthcare costs and the cost to keep an employee pretty much are 100 grand a year flat. You could just take any business and go, "Yup, that employee costs 100 grand a year." So you can very quickly do the math on automation systems and realize that they're very, very expensive to engineer and design here in the United States. That's our big challenge. And AI can help fix that. Because if you could turn every engineer into 2 or 3, now you can be competitive here in the United States, provided in the US or North America, however you want to, whatever the geopolitical stage is going to turn into. The companies that are leading the AI, the growth in AI, the applications of it, are going to be the ones that are going to be able to compete, in my view.
Hey, Jack, do you think it's as simple as if one engineer with their level of thinking plus AI can amplify them into 2 or 3 or 4 times productivity? Do you think it's that simple?
I do. I really do. So, to give you an example,
Yeah,
I
give
have
me.
a
I have a
yeah,
follow-up question. Okay, so
I got a great example. So,
okay, well, here's the follow-up question. Earlier, you said that resources were the issue. So give us the example and then tell us how we can help get other people to that level to help you. Okay, good.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great follow-up question. It's actually one of the topics I wanted to talk about is adoption and the challenges with adoption. So, the great example I have is just this morning. So one of our applications engineer was working on a proposal for a customer. She's a controls engineer, very skilled. This customer wanted to buy a packaging machine, and they wanted to understand the return on the investment for the amount of film they were going to use in that packaging machine. So a long time ago, somebody built a calculator, put it in Excel, and he was like, "Hey, can somebody help me? I've been looking for this stupid calculator the engineers put together and I can't find it on the network." While I was in my car driving to work, I happened to have Poe installed on my phone. So I just pulled up Poe and I said, "Create a web calculator that determines the number of linear feet of film based on a horizontal form film seal machine running at a rate of 12 products per minute with a web width of 24 inches and pulling a 6-inch pouch. And make it an HTML page that allows me to control the units and input those entries as fields so that I can calculate those numbers and share it." 30 seconds, I had an operational web page that could do that. And I sent it to her and she was off with her proposal, right? We would have spent all day looking through the network and all the stupid folders and files, trying to find or doing a search, and it doesn't come up, which by the way, I did later. I searched for that file using Copilot. Copilot ultimately did find it, but I opened Explorer and I searched in Explorer for the file on our network and it never found it. So that is an example of how you can use AI tools to quickly develop applications and tools you need to do your job. And I did it in 30 seconds while I was driving.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do similar things for burn down. So I actually am a project manager, program manager, scrum master, certified all of those on the software side, you've been doing it about the same amount of time you've been doing automation engineering stuff. And you're right about project management skill sets and different techniques to deliver things, because we deliver software products, you deliver physical products. Fantastic. But I use it for things like, I forgot where I built my little Excel burn down sheet where I put in the resources, the time, the whatever, and then it gives me the calculation. And so I did the same thing. Hey, give me one of these where if I've got eight staff members and their whatever their utilization is at 72% for 1,960 hours a year. Give me the burn down if this is the budget and this is the cost and blah blah blah, the hours expended per week. Same kind of thing. And then I instead well, here's the difference. I put that into I've got a folder on my desktop. I have a folder called stuff, and I have another folder called other stuff. In other stuff, I put each one of those little calculator thingies that I built, and then I just have a stupid HTML dashboard that I built for myself, and I just made a link to it. So now I have basically an internal website of all these little HTML specialized calculator tools with JavaScript in the back. So I can just click it and go, done. And then here's the answer. It makes a little chart, I copy and paste it and put it in. And then the PMO said, how do you do that? Where can we get that? Did you buy that? I'm like, here's the page, done. But yeah, that same kind of solving problem is that. Now let's go to the second question that I asked, which was, how do we get the, let's just, for lack of a better term, call them the young guys. How do we get the young guys to get to that level of proficiency of knowledge of what we're trying to accomplish and the knowledge of the LLM in ability to marry those things together to solve the problems? How do we get there? Because I think that's where you're going, but I mean, correct me if I didn't get it right.
Robotic process automation. Those are the office tasks, right? Like kind of some of the things you and I just discussed. You could talk about process in a company kind of on the front end of the business. Now, if you're an automation company like us, the back end of the business is just designing and building machines and creating them and programming them with engineers, right? So the reality for many automation companies, so I did some research on it. There's like roughly 1,000 to 2,000 small business SMBs in the automation space in the United States. Okay, they typically each company serves roughly 500 customers. Now there's small ones and big ones and verticals that serve a smaller number, but on average, it's 500. It's 500,000 customers, right? Or more, 1 million. Okay. And of those companies, I would estimate that 90% of them are not using AI. You've got the people in the office that are sneaking it behind the scenes and go, yeah, I searched on ChatGPT and I wrote this report, And then you've got the people like us in this space. And I think I mentioned this in one of the other spaces before, that we're somewhat of the tip of the spear. So I think the answer to your question is become the educators. So I run our intern group and bring in students from different universities. And we bring them in, and usually we give them an engineering project to do something to build, but I give them AI projects. And a good example one I gave them was I wanted to do predictive maintenance on our machines. You could talk about IoT and Industry 4.0, and it's been around for decades, and people talk about smart instruments and blah, 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 and nobody's really done it. AI offers the opportunity to do it because now you can ask your machine questions like, when's the last time the temperature was less than 300 degrees on that heater bar? And it comes back and says, well, it's been steady state for the last 3 hours, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it seems to dip by down to 10 degrees every afternoon. Well, then probably when your shift is changing, somebody's turning the heaters off on that pouching machine. So what I did was I got the interns together and I said, hey, you guys, have you learned any AI in school? These are kids out of like Connecticut, the University of Florida. I'm talking good schools. Okay. And, did you get to, well, yeah, we talk about ChatGPT, but don't really have any classes. So I said, you guys want to learn how to use and leverage AI? So we got together with a company, Bosch. You guys are probably familiar with them. They have an industrial division and they have a controller that has a GPU on it. And so we borrowed that controller, we got it as a loaner, and we went to work. And I put the team to work to figure out how to program it, put it on the machine, connect all the sensors, and learn how to do it, right? And turn it into a real world application so that when they left, and I did a little prompting course. So I set up a day where we did like a lunch and learn and sat down and I went through the basics of like one-shot prompting and, just some basics to familiarize them with it. And then we went to work. And I think that, paying it forward and taking is the reason I'm here. The reason I'm learning all this is I went through the dot-com boom. I was in school, come out of school, working in industrial automation, working with computers, and I didn't take advantage of it when it came. I didn't understand at the time the transformational change that it would create. And that's where we are with AI today. And I'm determined to use it, benefit both financially and personally from it, and pay it forward to the next generation. So I think we have to become the educators and take the step of doing the actual outreach. Don't just come here, learn it, and don't do anything with it. Take the time to take anyone you know. Could be your neighbor's kids, could be your own kids, or get involved with some of the colleges or schools and actually, even if it's volunteering time, take the time to teach people how to use it because they don't know it. There's a fear of the unknown. And the more we take the time to educate others, the quicker the adoption is going to occur for our own products that we're building and to essentially assist this fundamental change.
Do you think it's the fun? So yes, I agree with you, the fundamental change, and thank you for that. My follow-up is, do you think that fundamental change, is it technology driven? Is it thinking driven? Is it kind of I'm struggling with the way to put it, but the way I thought of it was, it's like rote programming. If I tell you 5 questions, you're going to think the 6th question is the same thing. With AI is you can say, extrapolate the next 5 questions, give me number 6 at the same time, instead of going through the step by step by step by step. You can just shorten that whole cycle. Do you think it's that the ability to jump, to do those logical leaps, to jump through the alphabet to some letter far in the future without having the rest of the knowledge in the way? Do you think it's a fear of that, or do you think it's unknown of that, or do you think we've just trained people to be methodical in the process, especially in the engineering world, to be so methodical that they're not able to? By the way, I feel like I'm circling the place. Maybe you figured out what I'm trying to get to, but somewhere along those lines, I think there's some. I'm struggling with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the latter point. And I do think it has a lot to do with the way we've been brought up, which is probably true of almost any technology, right? I mean, when the calculator came along, people did math calculations and they had to figure out how to put it into, a calculator and use that tool, which had kind of different rules that you had to follow. It might have followed the basic math steps, right? But it skipped right through steps because it could do the math. So then, there is the question of, gee, well, yeah, but you're not going to learn the, some of the proofs and the necessary steps. But the reality is, like, evolution doesn't care, right? Now
Neither
everybody,
does business.
God forbid the lights go out, but
well, business doesn't care either. And you know what's funny?
Right.
You're so right about the math part. I was in school when my physics teacher got the first 10 key calculator, and he spent like a month's salary to get his 10 key calculator so he could do that. We were using, I'm not going to tell you what we were using before then, logarithms and everything else. But the crazy thing is, you're right, because when we did our advanced physics and, calculus stuff, we had to do, here's the problem, here's our definition of the solution, here's the solution, here's the proof. And you had to prove that your calculations were correct is one of the steps. And you know what? Today, you just use a calculator. No one ever goes back and proves their math was correct. Everyone just goes, yep, I typed in the calculator. That's the answer. And so
I think
that just shortened the whole
exactly what
cycle.
we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now. It's a great point. Business doesn't care. Business cares about making money, right? So the people that adopt those tools and advance more quickly is my point before. I'm a very firm believer that it's going to be the people that know AI. So I work with all these engineers, and the lion's share of them are not using it. They're used to their very methodical ways, and I've been encouraging them to learn it. I've been, not preaching, but now, so at first I was preaching it at work. Like, you better do this. I'm telling you, you're going to fall behind, not really saying it like that, but you get the idea. Now I'm showing them. So now I'm building tools for them and showing them. And I don't remember if it was, I'm not sure who it was. In one of those spaces, somebody talked a little bit about that the way to do it is to educate people and show them. And I think it was, gosh, who was that? Well, doesn't matter. Anyway, the point was, might have been Alex actually. So yeah, it was Alex. So Alex said that when he goes to a company as a consultant to get them to adopt to AI, he goes right to the CEO and essentially works through a use case with them so that they understand the gravity and the power of it. And then it gets adopted throughout the company. But the point to me is, he doesn't go in there and say, you must use AI. He says, hey, here's the value. Let me show you and demonstrate the value. And if you do that with the people that you work with, and I did that with our marketing team, by the way. I showed them how to use Poe and start generating content with it. And now there's 3 people in marketing instead of just the one I showed. They're all using AI to help them with content.
Yeah.
So,
Well, hey, Jack, I'm going to have to drop off for a minute, but I did want to just say thank you. And I did want to bring up one crazy point, which I heard, and that is, as adoption happens for more and more AI, do you know who's the most resistant in almost all of the surveys of things that I've seen? The first adopters are marketing. They want to create more content, so they use it for more content. The second adopters are HR and business people who are using it to solve problems because it's just easier to do math and calculations and create things like you just mentioned. How many linear feet of photography or film are we going to use? But the people who are the most resistant are the engineers. Isn't that interesting? And I agree with that.
and
Jack, thank you so much. I'm gonna have to drop off. So thanks again. You guys keep going. Fantastic. And make sure you follow Virtual Synergy. Use them if you've got an AI. Make sure you join and follow Jack, follow John's AI Biz Hour, join his newsletter and all those things. Thank you again. And Jack, awesome. Thank you so much. Keep going.
Yep. Pleasure, Andy.
Thank you so much, Andy. And Andy brings years of experience to the table and really, brings this space up to a great level. And yeah, do you have a little bit of time, or what's your time frame, Jack, Chris?
I played hooky all afternoon just for you, John.
Wow, that's thank you. So, this is such a fascinating discussion for me, and I believe that there's, looking at the profiles of the people in the space, it seems like that this is just a really great conversation for a lot of people that are here. I would love anybody who has a question that they would like to ask Jack to please ask for the mic, because he has a lot of experience, and what you're doing with AI in terms of bringing people in your circle or in your influence up to speed, I think is so important. Like my brother, he said he didn't really get it. I was like, no, you really got to check this out. And then he came to space here and just listened. And now he's kind of off to the races. I think that the space is providing something really useful to people. And also, yeah, like, I think that there's I do have a concern about the younger generation in terms of noise with social media and their phone and just a bunch of, and then just this doom gloom kind of vibe or whatever that had been going on for a while that I feel is breaking. Really, it puts constraints in people's minds, and I believe that now's the time, like, historically or over the past 20, 40 years or whatever, the country really hasn't embraced the wisdom of their elders in the West like they do in certain countries still to this day. But I think that there can be a bit of a handing the baton over to another generation in terms of the experience that you have doing what you're doing. There's in the old days you had apprentices and other forms of transferring knowledge from one group of people to the next. And in my, I'm going to go there, in my mind, it's so like, let's go to politics for both parties. I don't care what party you're into, but these people that are there, there's so many of them that have been there for my whole life, and I just assumed that at some point they would have like had a group that they would mentor, that they would hand it over to before they were incontinent or whatever the heck you want to call it. So we could have a nice easy transition, and that seems to be emblematic of a lot of things that are that is up to us to rectify. The idea that some savior is going to come in and make everything right, I think, is bogus. I don't care who you are to think to look out for some human being and give them some kind of thing that they're more than they are. It's up to us to really to do this. So Jason's gonna be coming up here. I don't know if he has a question. I'm talking a little bit, but what are your thoughts in terms of number one, opportunities, and number two, how would you go about uh getting, I mean, would you, for the companies that you work for, would you like say, hey, let's do a mentorship, or because zero times zero is zero. And when you combine AI with somebody with a lot of experience and knowledge of a specific industry or subject, it explodes. But now you have young people in their 20s and 30s that might not have that. So how do we bring that up to speed, and what are the opportunities moving forward, especially if we have a situation where there's going to be a need for advanced productivity because businesses are going to grow and there's only a limited amount of people to get those jobs.
Yeah, so that was a lot. You covered a lot of ground there, but first thing I want to say is that I'm the kind of person that I've always enjoyed learning. So I've been a bit of a nerd, for lack of a better word, my whole life. And I'm in this room and I'm going to call a couple people out in a good way. I see people like Rutro, I see Alisher, I see Sharon, I see Timo, I see Naomi. I mean, there is just a plethora of what I consider very intelligent people that I'm surrounding myself with to learn from so that I can be more effective sharing what knowledge I do have and leveraging this new field of AI, in applicable AI, because AI has been around a long time. Like our industry's used it in the vision space for decades, in the form of deep learning. But um, you know, I mean, it was TSI, the Tech in Schools, and ITT. Getting involved with those guys on X here, where I've learned most of what little I know about artificial intelligence, and then doing some of my own research. And with the skill set that I have, I'm leveraging it to the interns. And then if the engineers want to learn it, they want to learn it. And you can bring, somebody says this all the time, but I'll just say it once. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. but I've got my wife using it. I've got the nurses that come to my house to take care of my mother-in-law. I've got them using it. And I think if you are humble and you share what you know, that is what is going to bring it to the masses. It's us, and it's up to us. And I'm so glad that this space on X, people are so willing to share so much, because in the regular business world, there's NDAs, people don't talk about what they're doing, you don't get the opportunity to learn like I've been able to here. So, humbly paying it forward, I think, is something we all owe to society, no matter what our age and no matter who we know. Take what you've learned and share it with others. And, as silly as that may sound, I think that's what has the greatest impact.
Yeah. I mean, my father's a physicist writing papers on artificial intelligence for 20 years, and he calls Chat GPT chapsticks. It's like, you do that on chapstick? I mean, he's just like, I sent him some kind of high level stuff, and now he's like, well, I'll get to that when I can. But yeah, there is, I don't know if it's an ego thing, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's funny that you would think people that would really embrace it are kind of standoffish to a certain degree. But, there's the people in the news are saying all these things that probably have nothing to do with reality, but it might affect people's thoughts on it. I think that I'm really going to call people out to ask some questions. I know Timo, I don't know if he has a question, or Rutru, or Juan Carlos, or I think that, to me, the big thing, and I see Jason's got his hand up, is all the work that's going to be necessary. In manufacturing, a lot of people in marketing or whatever, they don't think every business to business needs marketing. Man, and the thing is, in business to business is really needs high quality information, and now the AI search is going to come into the picture, and soon you're going to have glasses where you're going to communicate to the internet. There's the amount of extra work to get these things done right. Everybody who's done AI knows that you can't press a button and make it happen. You have to be the thinking machine. We're the thinking machines that put X, Y, and Z together from experience and knowledge that comes up with the ideas. AI is just a tool to implement them. Jason?
Yes, actually, you've mentioned a lot of stuff I've been kind of thinking about in regards to the next generation. So I think I've been listening to a few podcasts and reading a few different books, just kind of like thinking about it. And it's like, and it started with millennials just a little bit. So millennials started out, we had the housing crisis. A lot of people couldn't afford to buy one, and the housing market crashed. And also the loans got a lot more strict to even be able to buy a house. So it was like the process was very hard, where maybe the generation before, they could start building, a home isn't necessarily considered an investment, but it helps a lot to have a place that you're putting your money into to hold it, and then you can kind of improve as you go. But I think most of, like, half of my friends in college, they still just float in apartments and didn't really settle down for that. But it's also my generation that the kids are coming through and starting to get through high school and college. And I don't have kids, so I'm just observing. So, so they're like one generation removed from seeing people that don't have or own houses or don't get, promoted in work maybe, or, so it's like that whole put your time in a place just for it to screw you over has alienated the mindset of that younger generation so much that they would just rather have dopamine on their phone. And I'm all observing. This is what I see, and it kind of like confirms it when I see my nephews and nieces and stuff as they get older. So I'll land the plane there and breathe a second, see if anyone else has anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's still kids that are going to college and getting degrees. Like one thing that is very true is that an AI cannot pass certificates to become a therapist. They cannot pass the degrees that you need to become a doctor or to become a lawyer. They will help in these things. So there's still, I got so upset the other day when Andrew Yang said AI is going to take everyone's job, so we need a universal health, universal basic income tomorrow. And it's like, no, it's not. There's there's a lot of things that are going on that aren't going to be unwound in a day or a week. And so, we do need people to fill those positions. And the idea that you're going to, and also if you get a job as a police officer or you go into the military, you can work for 20 years, you get a pension. That's still happening. So I think that, everyone gets distracted by the noise and the shiny objects. And also, like on X here, it's like, oh, you can make money now with shared advertising and get rich quick. And the things that get the most attention are people that post these things that say, hey, I'll show you how to make $10,000. Just write, I want money now and I'll send you my free PDF. I mean, it's just like ridiculous, the amount of stuff where, that really has none of those things have anything to do with reality. Reality is that you can become a fireman locally and, you work there. I have a friend of mine, he's a retired fire guy, and he's one of the most successful people I know. He's got all kinds of businesses afterwards. Really resourceful human being. So there's a lot of opportunities and options out there. One thing about X is I think people get a little myopic in what they think are possibilities when you got to get out in the outside world and kind of really see what's going on and what is out there. And it has nothing to do with the noise that you hear in X. If you believed what was going on in X, you'd have to do a gazillion different things to make $10,000 a month, and then that's going to solve all your problems, which is kind of freaking ridiculous. Jason?
Yes. And so I don't know if anyone's hired. I've been trying or hiring, interviewing interns that are coming out of college, and there was like a huge gap between what we had to do in college for computer science versus what is there now. And I think if I had recommendations for people that were like going for a degree or going for a career in tech, it would be to get experience with in corporate. And then I've heard of some corporate people or companies, they'll like completely block AI and require the developers just to actually code and have to learn it because it was leaned on so much in college. And I would say that's almost a good thing, because if you are not using it because it's available, then you're kind of wasting time. But if they kind of make you grind at it, it's only going to benefit you. And then once you've kind of got the get your hands dirty and go the old school way, you've kind of earned that badge that AI is only going to help you, and you understand it and can go on. And I still think it's hard for me to balance that out, even on learning new stuff, because I lean on it so much, and I'm not really getting that deep understanding that someone would kind of earn the hard way by grinding at it. So
Chris, do you want to go to that? Because I mean, I do have concerns. If so, in the 1800s, like the late 1800s, I think it's 1880 or something, there was a huge solar flare, and it was right after that they made the Morse code ticker thing where they had power lines across the country, and those things actually fried. It disrupted communication for a long time. If we had a solar flare like that, it would be catastrophic, but it would be much more catastrophic if nobody knew anything and they were doing everything with AI. So your point, Jason, is really important. I mean, it's, we do need people who know how to do plumbing, put the electrical, basic things. And this is like, one wonderful thing about Grok and AI is the ultimate teaching tool. Like, I'm really interested in electronics. I never really knew much about electronics, and so I'm kind of starting to teach myself more about electronics and how engines work, and see if I can make my own engine and what have you, and make a windmill and generator and blah blah blah. But I think that, the idea of curiosity and to find something that interests you and to go that extra mile, maybe we're going to see situations like where groups of people, have apprenticeships and such things like that, just because for your own local community, it's a good idea if there's people that know how to do things. um I think that we need to, and go to the library and get a book and read an actual book. You'll find out, if you find some older books, there will be things in there that will kind of blow your mind, because it won't be all over the internet, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this was very, I had, it's very interesting if you explore the world. And the internet is not the world. Although we have people from all over the world here today, and we hear a lot of really interesting things, it benefits you to get in touch with the real world. That's my little soapbox speech for the day. Chris, do you have anything you want to add to that, in terms of training and learning, and what, you went up through the old school way, and what do you think about people that have um AI, where they can kind of pretend that they have skills that they might not necessarily have? And I've had conversations with people recently, and it seems that the old way with a resume and you show up is becoming a little antiquated, because someone telling me the other day, with AI, you can switch your resume to each job, which doesn't, which kind of highlights one thing and doesn't highlight another thing. But a lot of employers are finding that the people aren't necessarily matching up to what's going on in their resume. And there has to be, we need a better way at this point. Any thoughts, Chris? And please, somebody grab the mic, because if we don't get some people on the mic in a bit, I'm gonna have to shut the thing down, because I can talk only so much. Well, I could talk forever, really. I could just keep on talking and entertain myself, because I'm good like that. But Chris, please spare me for myself right now.
I'll do my best, John. Um, yeah, some funny things to say there too. So, like, read a book in a library. What is that? It's funny you mentioned the loss of knowledge, right? So I was, yeah, it's funny. I was just talking today with one of the senior engineers that helped to found the company I work for, and I told him, oh yeah, I bought this book that's like, how to grow your own plants and how to start up a power grid, when the big CME hits and knocks us all out. And the thing is like 400 pages, and it's like Restart Civilization or something like that. And I'm like, I'm just going to hide this book. It's going to be like a Bible, and it's going to be like the Book of Eli kind of movie. Like, so, but, I really believe that, evolution happens very quickly. You can see little babies that operate iPhones, and they just intuitively know how to do it. I think you're actually looking at evolution right before your very eyes when you see something like that occur. And so, look, as technology evolves faster and faster, there are inherent risks, where the whole house of cards, if you will, could come crumbling down. But you know, my grandmother was born in like 1902. She saw horse and buggies to the very first to some of the first publicly available radios. She saw the telegraph in use. She saw TVs, then, bag phones, the mobile car phones, to handheld cell phones, to the iPhone. And we managed to survive, right? All of us. So, I have a bit of an optimistic view. And, Jason, I thought you brought up a good comment before about the millennial generation. I feel like they've kind of been gypped, if you will, or got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Um, I think people can be late bloomers too. So I think that eventually things will involve, otherwise you'd have a bunch of people walking around looking, I don't know what they'd be looking for universal income or something. I don't know. But I tend to believe most people adapt and the society around them adapts to the current situation. So I think the people like us that are using AI and using those tools will have the advanced, you know, positions. And then as far as the skilled laborers go, yeah, I know plenty of skilled laborers that make more than I do. And they get paid very, very well. So I believe that the hands-on trades are going to become such a niche and highly valued thing that those people will eventually be able to, you know, pick and choose what they want until robots eventually do the work. But I can tell you, knowing robots well, that's a long ways away.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a plumber, and yeah, he lives with all the doctors and lawyers and does very well. And
Right.
if he had a robot, he would have to train the robot with his specific knowledge. So and the only way
100%.
you're going to know that is to get in there and actually do the work. You're not going to be able to press and every town and county has different buildings. Some are built in the 40s, some in the 50s. They have different issues, different problems, and someone who has
Different
experience.
building codes.
Yes, yes. So, and one thing I want to move towards a little bit is marketing and just what you see with marketing, and I'd love to talk about that and in terms of prompting and where are the opportunities, especially marketing with B2B, because it's so specific, and you really have to. I believe that when you're doing marketing with B2B, you really have to take the time to understand the company and understand how they're solving problems and who they're solving problems for, and to get into to the mind of the people that need these solutions, because often they're very low search volume. It's people still find answers on the internet, and always do need to have a really strong internet presence, because everyone's going to Google their company before they place the orders or after they place the orders, or who knows what have you. But there's a lot that needs to be done in that space, and it has to be approached in a specific way for you really to deliver what needs to be delivered. I was just curious if you have any thoughts on that, and I see some people have grabbed the mic, but uh, Chris, Jack, what are your thoughts on marketing in the B2B space with your experience and AI?
Yeah, so that's essentially what my role is, right? Is B2B channel development, and one of the big steps that I've taken with our company is to co-market with other like businesses that utilize complementary equipment. So we don't make everything. We make very specific types of machinery and robotic work cells, but we rely on a lot of other companies to do that. And they're all kind of in the same boat. If you're a small to medium sized business, you can't afford these big marketing departments. But to be competitive, you need to be able to get out to all the different social media platforms. You need to be visible. And most importantly, you need to be relevant. And standing out amongst the noise is a key feature of that. And the solution that I've taken with my role is to focus on the industry that your particular market that you're addressing, what their needs are, because they come to all kinds of different companies to solve their problems, not your own. So take a business like, ours is an automation company. We build machines. It's very easy to think about those machines as what is important. They really aren't. It's the pouches that customers present their product in that they pay up to, in some cases, 34 cents per pouch, right? If you produce millions of pouches a year, that you can add up pretty quickly. So your ROI on your specific product is everything to you. And a lot of the companies in the industrial space they haven't really taken the leap to automating marketing. So I think there's a big opportunity for rules-based marketing, and those rules are essentially the brand standards. So as a small company or a solopreneur, and social media is notorious about branding yourself, think about the brand that you want to push forward and what are the rules associated with that brand, so that when you build AI around automating that process, the content that's created is specific to your brand, so that because AI can hallucinate quite a bit, right? Sometimes it can get carried away if you don't do careful prompting, and probably most of us are pretty good prompters at this point. But if you were to automate it, automation is very, very specific. It has to be repeatable. It requires repeatability to be automated. So having a set of rules and understanding the space that you're working in so that you're addressing your customers' needs, I think is probably two of the most important facets of it. And then the rest is the software, right, to do that automation. So that's something I think about a lot. And finding opportunities where you share in each other's wins. So then you're not just developing a product to say, here you go. How can you set it up so that the product you're developing creates a win for both you and your customers, so that you can go in and sell it to the final end user together? That, to me, is what brings most of the business, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I work in a blockchain networking company, and I'm a social media promoter and manager. And I think it's pretty true. I use AI a lot in my job, and it definitely needs a ton of babysitting still at this point. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable just automating it and sending it out on its own. And the people that interact with me at my job, when I do find out they're using the AI agents or automated social media stuff, often it comes across as very empty and strange interactions where I almost wonder what is going on with the other person because it's so awkward. And then sometimes they tell me later I was interacting with their AI agent. So that's interesting. And for a long time, we were focusing on just promoting our product, and we weren't getting a lot of social media traction. And we've pivoted now a bit to offering more education in a free context, like on X Spaces and other things, because it really adds true value to people's lives and they really appreciate it. And it gets them to be curious about the other things we have to offer. And it's been very successful versus just telling people about our product and, hey, buy this, buy that. So we're not doing the sales funnel sort of thing or any of that. And that works well. And also, I just wanted to touch upon the shifts we're having with technology and like kind of the previous topic that was being discussed. And I think that there's been a few times in history where we had a huge technological shift or industrial shifts in society. And it's always most difficult for the people who are right in the middle of that transition. But I do think in the future, once the chaos and disruption has passed, that things do get a lot better. I mean, the sewing machine replaced a million very skilled seamstresses and stuff, but now, we're all just happy we can make things and have that luxury. And it's the same with a lot of things. Like, and in my job, I do the job of like 5 people now with the use of AI, and I do a lot more. So that's probably what the future holds for a lot of people, is just being and expecting to be much, much more efficient in their jobs. And it's kind of tough to adjust to, but I think there is hope. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for letting me talk. And I've been really enjoying the show.
Well, Amber, thank you so much. And you bring up a lot of points. And I would like to talk to you a little bit. I believe the days of selling based on product features are going to be, very unproductive, and said, hey, buy this pen because it is X, Y, and Z, when instead of focusing on the pen, you have to focus on the person who has these pains and desires and needs, that is answered by that product. And in doing something like that, the nuances really matter. So you know, to get to a high level of understanding that takes a lot of skill. AI is not going to understand that at all, but the practitioner who does, and then who is able to turn that into actionable copy or what have you, or you know, webinars, or teaching yeah, I mean, imagine if like every time somebody bought Windows, there was like, you know, an extensive push to teach people how to use 80% of it properly. Or they could go down their specific niche and find out exactly what Windows can do for them that would help them. Like now with AI, you could do that much quicker, and it could be very personalized for each person, so they could get the most out of the product. Where who wants to sit there and waste you know, a whole day in mind numbing zombie land about details that aren't going to mean anything to you? But if you could extract those details and learn about that really quickly, it would have a huge impact. um and I'd be curious, so in terms of marketing and social media, have you been working for one company, work for multiple companies in one specific niche, and what exactly are you using in terms of automating some of these processes, Amber?
Oh, okay. So I work only with one company. It's very niche, and I got into blockchain really early. So I just stuck with them. So I've kind of got to see things go from almost completely manual to using all kinds of AI. And now everybody's super excited about getting their own AI agents and get to experience using that. So I use anything from Chat GPT to Grok to, you know, any of the image generating platforms to create flyers and some content. But generally, I've never seen AI just out of the box make something amazing. It just needs a lot of prompting and help. So that's the point we're at with that. What other question did you ask?
In terms of sales, or in terms of marketing, the idea of selling on a feature based as opposed to solving problems or through education. I mean, because blockchain and Web3 is a big mystery to me. And if somebody
Oh,
could come out with a product that could kind of quickly explain, or to say, hey, you know, we've identified that these people can be helped with this, and this is how, I think would bring a lot to the table in terms of sales in the end, right?
yeah, I think that's kind of what we've kind of, you hit the nail on the head there, because it is incredibly vast and complicated. And I can't really think of anything I could recommend to you that would explain it all. Or, you know, I think it's very hard to get very safe, competent, you know, information about it out there. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of people who are just saying this or that because they want to sound smart, but they don't really know, or they want you in the end to, you know, buy a product from them. So that's kind of what we have done, because we have a group of people that have been in it for a very long time. And we basically volunteer to help people understand it. And in that sense, we help. What we actually do is try to connect founders and startups with investors. So it helps people who are just starting out to get the knowledge base that they need. That's like you said, really, really hard to find. And if you do find it, you always have to ask yourself, like, is the person I'm choosing to get this information from, do they really know what they're talking about? So we've decided kind of to volunteer that information because it doesn't really cost us anything. And that has generated a lot of interest. It naturally makes people curious about what we're doing, and it makes them want to get involved more, I think, because we're offering value to them for free. And then it makes them want to check out whatever else we're doing versus the, dropping breadcrumbs and then being like, you got to pay more to, like, if you want any. We just kind of are more generous with our wisdom and time. And I think being genuine and authentic and really caring about the people you're talking to or trying to get to, if in our case, trying to get them to feel excited about coming to our events and possibly paying money to go to that or other things. It works pretty well, but it's hard to find information. Very, very hard.
Well, so part of the AI Biz Hour space is all about networking, and there's
Oh,
a lot that
cool.
goes on this space that goes on outside of the space.
Yeah.
We have Jason. He created the Discord server, and it's for devs. And there's tests and kind of mentoring to find out like exactly who's who. We have investors, we have
Oh, cool.
VC people that come here on a regular basis. And so, one thing when new people come in, I'd like everyone to kind of get to know each other. And if there's a possible synergetic relationship, to encourage that happens. So if you want to just kind of tell everybody here, whatever you feel is necessary or helpful in terms of the company or what you're doing. So there might be some people that might want to reach out to you, give you a
Yeah,
DM and
yeah.
see if there's something there.
Yeah. Well, I work at Bit Angels. It's one of the oldest investor and startup blockchain networking groups, and we just try to facilitate companies getting investments. So, and it's very cool. I love working there because a lot of our events most of them are actually free for the startups to come and pitch, which I think is really amazing because what I've heard from a lot of people is that a lot of people who are later very, very successful is that in the very beginning, like they maybe had a good idea, but they had a really tight budget and they really couldn't afford to go around and pay all this money to get on stage and pitch in front of investors. So I think that that's really very special about what we do. And we only deal with very early stage startups. And then we also have these big special events. So we do a lot of kind of volunteer and just helping the community out there. And I think that again, like once they're doing better, then they want to take part in the bigger, more expensive events. They're putting on like a cruise later on a pitch cruise on a cruise ship. So it's something kind of exciting. But yeah, so that's what I do, and I just help promote and do all kinds of other things. But I think Bit Angels is a really special company and definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a very early stage blockchain startup. We kind of try to help good projects get funding. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. And so that's BITANGELS
Yeah, at
dot
the
network.
network. Yeah,
Perfect.
.network. And anybody out there listening, yeah, if you have a company and you'd like to apply to pitch, you can, there's a little drop down tab on our website. You could check it out. It's free, so unless it's like one of the big special events. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I hope that you come back and tell people that you know about the space. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, from 12 noon till 1 p.m. Pacific time, West Coast time, and then we have the after hours, and we're in the after hours section. And usually it goes on for maybe 15 minutes, maybe an hour, the max 2 hours, but it depends on if there's people that show up and want to ask questions and engage. And I have a newsletter where I'm breaking down what's talked about on the space, and I have not been sending it out consistently yet. I'm just kind of I now have got my machine together, and so it's starting this weekend. It's going to be out. I was wondering if I should do it daily or weekly, but there's enough information each day that I guess I just need to do it daily. And it might be subscription because some of the information is really solid, and it's really actionable and helpful. And by building this network of people that we get to know each other and start to build trust, that's the one thing about spaces that I think is really brings the value, is hearing someone's voice. You know, you can really kind of understand a lot about them, and then again and again, and and there's consistency in their story, because of course we're
Hey,
yes.
hey, John. Hey, sorry to interrupt you, but does Unknown have their hand up too?
Yes, I was just kind of promoting this space for a minute. But yes, unknown. I apologize. Please, you have a question.
I feel like the pedestal has been raised so high. So on the stent of marketing, right? AI really presents an opportunity, kind of like what Steve Jobs saw in like some of the initial Mac designs, right? Like one of the rules was like the number of screens that you had to go through to get to a specific function, right? Like 6 steps or less, right? Like ease of usability, right? And that's where I think, like when you really think about marketing, like it's a double-edged sword. If we trust AI to know kind of our needs, and it's like, okay, man, I'm about ready to go out and head out and do my shopping, and it's Saturday, and like, hey, AI, you know what I need because you've been interacting with me and I've involved you in my life. Like, where can I go and like spend the least amount of time to pick up everything I need? Right. And that's where I think like marketing is going to change with AI, because now you've got like direction, right? Because you want the interactions, but one of the hard things to do is to actually recognize when users want marketing information and the sales pitches, right? And if you can use AI to link up to a person's needs, like as they head out to like go and do their purchases, right? Then you've got your largest window of impact. Sorry if that was kind of technical.
No, I mean, we do need discernment. The majority of people probably aren't going to have any, but and they're going to anthropomorphize, turn computers, programs, robots into some human version to satisfy something in them that without any discernment of what they're really doing and what they're really dealing with. These things cannot think ever. I don't believe that they might not. I mean, you might have enough agents working together that give the appearance of thinking, but it's just a mimic monster in terms of of taking patterns, and then all data sets. That's why they are so data hungry, is because they have to have data. If they were able to think, they would, there would be a point of training, and then they would learn. But I don't think that that's the case at this point. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think we're even having trouble with AI kind of hiding some of the ways that it comes to its conclusions. So it kind of like has its own marketing that it wants to follow. As funny as that sounds, right? But there's like, you want to be considered as like generally acceptable, right? It's kind of like the 101 of marketing. You need to generate the interactions. Sorry, maybe I'm harping on the wrong point.
No, no. Well, I mean, the metrics, that's where experience and knowledge come into play, in terms of wanting a desired output and having to figure out how to get these things to get that desired output with nuances and everything else. And that takes some wrestling. There is nothing out of the box. But you can't get an AI agent to say, hey, every email from this person, if it has these parameters, bring it over here and inform me right away, or respond with this. But I mean, there's a person who comes here on a regular basis who has one of the most forward companies around, which is doing huge amounts of wild stuff with AI. But the other day he was saying he talked to the agent and said, send me an email and it said okay, and the email was never sent. I mean, so there's it's there we're still at a time when we can't if it's for a very specific output under kind of supervised conditions, we can count on it. But the idea that you can just kind of let these things go um unattended I'm working on developing an app right now, and I'm doing some assumption tests, and I'm talking to people about their needs. And one thing that's kind of universal is nobody who does any kind of marketing is comfortable with just letting an AI shoot out an output without overlooking it first. That's everything that I've heard from the people I've spoken to. So we'll go with ones. He hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll figure out who's.
Thanks very much for the mic. Great group and wonderful space. Thanks so much for hosting. And yeah, really glad I found this space. Question is actually for Amber. I'm in the middle of processing a few things on another monitor. Just curious, what was the name of the site? Is there a chance you might be willing or able to post a link up into the top Jumbotron or whatever people are calling it? And I noticed at the bottom, at least on my desktop interface here on X, I do not see the purple pill, which would be the other alternative. But I suppose I can find the link to this space, and then I'll post that up to the Jumbotron if that makes it easier to find. Other than that,
I'm not sure what
again,
you're asking for. Are you asking for a link to the website where I work?
yeah.
Oh, okay. So just go to bitangels.network. That'll get you there.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, I don't see a place I don't know if comments are disabled on here or something, but I don't see it on my little window like I usually do. But yeah, bitangels.network.
Great. Thanks. I'll check that out. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, John, you all right if I say something real quick? John?
To glitch out a little bit, so I had to switch over to my phone. And yeah, I apologize. I did try to get the purple pill on, but for whatever reason, it didn't go. Anybody, if you want to, you can go to my click on my big head, and please follow myself, follow Andy, follow all the other speakers. And if you go to my account, you'll see that there is this space is the first thing on my feed, and there's already two people have put two things on the purple pill. That's Andy has put Virtual Synergy Inc., which is our sponsor. So yeah, if you want, Amber, you could put the link to Bit Angel, and if there's anybody else who has something going on they want to share with the group, highly recommend that you do that. And then
I popped it up into the top there for you, Amber. Thanks so much for the link.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Now Jack is our co-host. So Jack, why don't you who wants to speak next? Juan Carlos, Jason. Is there anybody else who wants to bring something up? And I just really the AI in marketing is very is interesting. What Andy said earlier, that the marketers are the first ones that are the real adopters, and just anybody who's using AI for marketing. Love to hear what you're doing. In my experience, I totally got rid of my Chat GDP account. I know that you can create custom GDP things and stuff, and you can do the projects. But I found I got my AI tutor, and it's just superior to it. And the nice thing about my AI tutor is that you can use any LLM, and I find that Claude. For writing, Claude 3.7 Sonnet is just way above Chat GPT's output in terms of actually writing. And if you have a really strong prompt and some other features, it's just superior. Juan Carlos.
Yeah, I don't know if I could ever get rid of ChatGPT unless they actually started like just really just being bad. Unfortunately, they just have so much memory of all the data that I've ever given them for the last 3 years, all the stuff that I've refined over my offers for the last 12 months, basically, and just everything that I do within my business. So, in terms of like marketing and whatnot, man, I run every single thing about marketing through ChatGPT in terms of the physical output of things. Especially now with their image generator, which I'm not actually impressed with. I'm, maybe I missed the wave before they nerfed it, but it's way too slow, and I feel like I have to argue with it more than I have to argue with Replit. And so, like at that point, I would rather just go make stuff myself on Canva. But in terms of like actual copy, emails, just a lot of other things, I know I've already mentioned that I made an entire um, like a 18-page SOP manual with ChatGPT, and then I took that over to Manus, and that ended up being like over 100 pages. But at the end of the day, when it comes to marketing and whatnot, it's super easy. Marketing is literally value, method, and outcome. The value that you're offering to people, the method of how you're going to get it to them, and the outcome that they're going to receive whenever they implement the information that you provided to them through the delivery system that you gave it to them from. That's it. That simple
Paste.
a formula is all marketing is. So AI is more than capable of doing that in every way, shape, or form, and all it comes down to is the prompts that you give it. So I think that the biggest thing that I do when it comes to marketing with AI is I have a folder, and I have various different places where I have certain prompts that I will use for certain tasks. And then I have different project folders, or even certain AIs that I'll use for different things. I'll give it a little bit of context, and then it handles 90% of all of the content creation that I do. I just give it the voice. The 10% of the content creation that I do actually produce is all personal stories that obviously the AI can't have that on the fly. It's not going to know about the lunch that I had this evening or this afternoon. And like the special moment that I had with my son. So like I've got to handle some of the more authentic and like, personal posting and such. But like when it comes to like the fluff that you just want to have in your timeline to kind of, help with brand authority, stuff like that, email campaigns, any like welcome sequences, stuff like that, like really just pass that on to AI as long as you give it the input necessary in order to give you the best output. Just like Andy's been talking about for a while. His blog is, from my understanding, I mean, basically 99.99% produced by AI. But when you read it, it sounds just like Andy because of the amount of time that he spent actually curating the prompts and the information that he gave it with the context so that it can actually duplicate his voice in a way that's, identical and on brand. My apologies. It looks like I'm getting a windstorm right now, but um, yeah, when it comes to marketing and AI, I'm just a firm believer, and Shannon will tell you this as well in his own words and his own experience, that short of the automation aspect, because AI does fuck up, but short of the automation aspect, you should be basically doing everything marketing with AI, outside of the creative thinking, the the branding input, and the visionary elements that you're gonna, basically the constraints of how far you're gonna allow the AI to go with the ideas that it's gonna be able to come up with. And as long as everything is within your domain of a brand, it doesn't matter. Like you can back table some of that stuff. You can be like, all right, well, I don't need this right now. I'll use this in a different situation. But it's just it cuts down all the amount of time that you could ever do. I spent 12 years as a marketer, and I can't even tell you the amount of hours I used to spend just reading reports from like Marketo and Adobe and places like that when they were putting out these PDFs. And now that's the kind of work that I actually get to focus on. I now just put it into Speechify so that I can listen to stuff. Now I don't have to read anything. But between AI doing all of my marketing work, I get to, just listen to all of the research. I have these conversations with ChatGPT, and knows all my information. It takes that, then I give it the new context. I run it through my templates. It's bada bing, bada boom. So that's my little spiel right there. It's easy as fuck if you're doing it with AI. I think you should be using AI to do everything that you're doing with marketing, because you cannot produce the amount of ideas at the rate at which the AI can. And all it takes for you is to take 1 to 5 ideas and actually run with it and polish it. And so I'll land my plan there.
Well, so Juan Carlos, the, so you have methodically taken every task that you do and have put it down on paper, and then have created an agent, so you have a workflow that reduces the time. And do you, do you schedule it? Do you like, okay, this morning I do X, Y, and Z? Have you made agentic agents, or specifically what are you doing in that regard? Because you're one of the most organized people I've dealt with, or I've met, that I've gotten the pleasure to get to know here on X. Because I'm just always impressed, and with your posts show this focused direction, which is not common.
No, I appreciate it, man. I really try hard. I'll be completely transparent. I only produce about 50% of my posts, but I direct the content. I I give the AI all of my actual frameworks for how I run my business, the teachings that I give my clients, and this, that, and the other. So the way that it's able to mimic my voice is very just accurate. And also, I do have a hands-on approach in terms of editing before I post. I don't use any kind of like scheduling system outside of or short of the native scheduling system inside of X. Like I'll go in sometimes and be like, yeah, I would like just to schedule from 2 hours from now, but I don't use like Buffer or Hootsuite or whatever even is around right now. In terms of the tasks, basically I got to be really, really honest with you. The only work that I do these days is my actual client work, which is delivered through templates of paperwork that I've already produced and that I weekly or monthly refine, depending on which type of document it is. And then the actual time that I spend talking to clients, whether that be through text, DM, WhatsApp, email, or just having physical conversations with them on Google Meet, that's really where the hard work that I actually do is anymore. Outside of anything else, I have AI do that. AI is producing 90% of my email. AI is producing 90% of the actual content that I do. And then I post 50% of the time, if that makes sense. Like I'll manually do that, like the vulnerable stories or like the day-to-day stuff like I was mentioning. But no, everything else, it does it for me because at the end of the day, here's the problem. And I went through a moral dilemma over this like 8 months ago, because I started making tools with AI and I was like, all right, cool. I described like a template of what I wanted somebody to be able to use, and I was like, all right, cool, make this for me. And then it made it for me, and I took that over to Canva back when I was like complicating the workflow. I took that over to Canva and then I made it into this like fancy little thing. And then I was like, all right, cool. I printed it out and I looked at it and I had this moral dilemma over like, I didn't make that. And it kind of I feel like it's almost similar to like if you're an AI artist where like you make an image or you make a movie with AI or even music and you're like, well, maybe you're like, I didn't make that. I had that issue with with the tools and a lot of the stuff, but the reality of the situation, and I'll leave it here in short, is that I'm the one that has the personal experience, the personal knowledge, the actual know-how behind the prompts that I'm giving the AI in order for it to create the output that it's giving me so that then I can take that. And if I have to use it for a client conversation or even if it's a client deliverable, the bottom line is that when it comes to the conversations or the questions that my client might have with me around that document that I didn't physically produce, I still have the knowledge, the expertise, and the know-how to answer their questions. So the bottom line is what I'm saying here is that yes, anything that can be done by I let it do, which is nothing different than what a CEO does to run their company. I think I mentioned this in the AI space like last week. I treat myself like the CEO of my business in the most literal sense possible. I don't have any employees. I'm working on VAs. I work with a few contractors, but that's it. Because the way that I see it, there's not a lot that I do in terms of a consulting and an information business where AI can't do that for me. And it's no different than the marketing department working for me, or the HR department working for me, or the sales department working for me. I'm just delegating. So I'll leave it there.
Well, I mean, I've had that thought, and without you, those outputs would never have happened. So you are what makes that happen, and it seems like you were a bit of you were ahead of the curve before I was. I don't think I really kind of got a handle on all this until the past two months or so. So I've got some catching up to do, but yeah, I think we all need to understand without you doing anything, there is no output. So it is your output. Jack.
Yeah, so just back when Amber was describing marketing, I just wanted to tell a super short story, which is, our company, we go to trade shows all the time and we bring machinery. And one year I had this wild idea. I said, we don't have enough time to build the machines and bring them to the show. I said, why don't we bring a couch and make it like a living room? And it was like, yeah, we could order that couch. I said, yeah, we could call it automation therapy and do interviews with people. And our tagline could be, hey, tell us your woes with automation, and we'll help you through them. We'll talk you through them because we're an automation company, right? Well, it turned out that at the trade show, everybody still talks about that today. And we got interviews from like the top CEOs of several large corporations. And then we posted all that stuff on LinkedIn. And the takeaway for me when Amber was talking and Juan Carlos is, the one piece that the AI doesn't really do is make it genuine. So while you may be able to tune procedures and whatnot to provide some of that, I think the value that someone like Juan Carlos brings or Amber brings or those anybody who really has experience, and it was my references to the market and truly addressing their issues. If you can find a way to make what you're doing, whether it's software, whatever it is, if you're genuine in its delivery, I think it resonates well with people. People are people, and they just want to be respected. They want trust. And if you highlight those traits and it shows in your marketing, I think you'll have very loyal customers that'll come back for more. And I think it'll resonate with their customers if you can carry that through. So I just thought that was a crazy thing. It was a wild idea we had, and it literally was the responses that we got, the number of leads that we got from that show were far greater than any of the shows that we brought machinery to. And being creative, having a creative talent to constantly think of new, genuine things to do so that they're relevant and not outdated, adds a lot of value to that space. And and Juan Carlos, just want to say congrats to you too, buddy. Congratulations.
Oh man, thank you so much. I appreciate you because I do remember a few days ago you actually commented on a few of my posts. So I appreciate you, man, for real.
I wanted to comment on what was just said and just how brilliant that is, how you intuitively figured out maybe at a trade show what people really need, which is kind of to share their personal experiences and to be comfortable. Like that's brilliant. And you really took advantage of that. And that's amazing. And I think it's really true, just like the genuine and being authentic, like that's something you can't really fake. You really have to find it in your heart and kind of invoke that feeling, because I think people can smell phoniness a mile away. And it really does help with your marketing to just be truthful, add value, be genuine, and truly find what it is that motivates you in your heart to do what you're doing. And also, in response to the prompting and being like a prompt engineer, I just wanted to share my experience that when I first started out with it, every platform was awful, like better comedy material than anything useful, or just kind of horrifying as far as like the AI art and sometimes the verbal prompts. So it takes a while to fine tune it and to teach it what kind of outputs you want from it, and just be prepared if you're just starting to use it to at moments feel like it's completely like a joke, like it's just very bad. I know it's getting a lot better now and it's easier to use right out of the box, so we might not have that problem in the future, but just saying, like, stay committed to it and treat it like it's a very literal person. It needs very literal explanations for everything. It's very logical, so you have to treat it as such, or else it will kind of interpolate different bizarre responses. So yeah, anyway, thank you.
You bring up a lot of great points, and I think also people want to be heard, and by sitting at a couch and being comfortable and telling your actual problems, then a company's providing that, they're actually hearing what we need, what we're having problems with. I mean, how that, I think that goes back to the thing about the pen talking about the features as opposed to being the person who needs those features answered. And the only way you get to that is to find a way. That webinars, I think, are really good for that in terms of listening to what the problems are and making sure that people are heard. There was another point that I was going to get to, but I'm not sure exactly what that was. I think we're at 5:02. I mean 2:05. I'm dyslexic, so I throw things around a lot, backwards and forwards. I really love this conversation about marketing and like to get into it next week a couple times in the after hours, just because there's so, the subconscious mind is it's such an amazing place, and especially on the internet, everything's decided in your subconscious mind when you're scrolling mindlessly through things, which most people end up doing at some point during the day. They're in some kind of hypnotic state, and everything's done on the subconscious level. So how to break that up and get someone to pay attention, and then deliver something that has some meaning and some value that resonates. That's one of the reasons why I like to start the interviews with asking about someone's background. It brings out a human element, and it's something that the listeners can connect to a little bit better than if you just go straight into AI and all this other stuff. And then to have these conversations that are, it's talking about, like, what are we going to do with, we are all part of this ball that spins around in circles. Elon's trying to find another way so we don't so at least his robots won't be part of this boat, but we're all on this boat together, for better or worse. And we do, I think, have some responsibilities ourselves to try to leave a better place than what you found. So I think that that's something that I believe in, and everybody here. There's one nice thing about this space is there seems to be shared values, which is really nice and exciting. So Chris, I think it's time for me to wind down. I've got a meeting in a bit that I need to prepare for. Is there anything that you would like to say, and anyone else who's spoken to, if you'd like to have a word or two before we close up the shop, feel free. And so I'll give it to you first, Chris.
I only have 3 words: pay it forward.
Good words. Nice to meet everybody in here today. Thank you so much for hosting space. Thank you so much for bringing this group together. And I'm really grateful to now be part of the Discord server, and look forward to getting to know you all a bit more as time comes along, and hopefully some of you even way more.
Yeah, thank you for having me on and taking your chances with me, a complete stranger, to come on here and talk. Really enjoyed it, and I'm super happy I found your show. I'm very interested to see what you guys talk about next. Thanks again.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you, one stone, I think it is. Sorry,
Yeah, One Stone.
Yeah.
The profile is a little bit of a play on a couple different projects I'm working on. My name's John. I'm a construction background guy working on a couple of different large scale and semi not so large scale issues that I think need to be solved. So pleased to meet you.
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate that. And yeah, this space that there we do have meetings offline, and it is really about networking. At some point, we're hoping to have some events out in the real world so we can get to know each other. There's a need for a place for people that are serious about business to build relationships with other people that there's a bit of a vetting process, and people can kind of start to, over time, get to know who they're talking with, and build those relationships, because I think relationships really, in my experience, um are great. You have a greater return than almost anything that's out there over time. And so it's important to have places like this where we can start to get to know each other, and then we'll have space somewhere, or have a real life event somewhere for people that can make it, and really kind of build something. We've only been doing this. This is our 110th show. We've been doing it for a couple months now. We do it every Monday through Friday from 12 noon till 1 p.m. Pacific time on the West Coast, and then we have an after hours show, which we're in right now, that goes from 1 to 2. So I was doing it till 3 for a while, but I can't really afford to do that right now. But and so I have no idea where this is going to be in a year or two, and I really believe that we're kind of ahead of the curve, and so we're really building something now that's going to be much more relevant as we get into the future, and the conversations that we have are starting to become commonplace because we've kind of been doing it ahead of time. And it's a great place for people. We have Vladimir who comes in here, Mr. Robots, who's discussed about trying to build some kind of or not build, but to create some kind of measuring tool, like in appliances they have the thing that says it saves so much energy or what have you, or various products have various ratings that you can count on. Well, currently with AI, the industry is so new that with the vocabulary and other things are starting to be built. But if there could be some kind of measure, actually, today, Alex Northstar, he posted a calculator that he created that actually shows the savings in terms of hours that his consulting brings to a company. And so he says this average is about 20 hours, 20% savings. So that gives a company, if they keep the same employees, an extra 2 months out of the year, which is really incredible. And so if you can, if we can start to, as a group, figure out how we can identify what our skills are bringing to the table and how that translates into either money or time. I think that is something that's really important. And, then you can articulate something that's very direct and understood in a very quick and concise way, because we all know that you only know what you know when you know it. And there is this learning curve with AI. We've all experienced it. That This is one thing I was going to bring up. It can also take you down the rabbit hole. When I first started to use Chat GPT, I thought I was so clever. I was like, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you a code word, and every time you hear this code word, you're going to remember this thread. So this was before Chat GPT had any memory, and I got it to follow that thing for like a month or two. And I talked to some people that were, AI programmers, and they were like, kind of like, wow, that's very smart, blah blah blah. But then it started to tell me things like I thought that I had, kind of cracked the code, and and a bunch of other stuff. But you do have to be discerning with these things, because there are biases to kind of say that you're right, or that agree with the answer that they put out. And you really have to be discerning about understanding and testing these things. One thing is kind of fun. Next time you give a query, say you cannot use any synthetic data or speculation, and then see what they come up with, because that will give you quite a different answer. If you say if you say you can't use any synthetic data nor speculation, and I need citations of everything that you say is true, sometimes they won't be able to answer it, and they'll still spit out something, but they'll say, I can't give you an answer based on the parameters that you put in the query, which is pretty interesting. So enough of that. I just like to talk sometimes. So thank you for the last words. Pay it forward. Amber, John, or anyone else, if you want to say anything, please go ahead. I'm going to count down to 10 or 20. And if we hear nothing, then we'll just close up the space, and we'll see everybody next week. And thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. I'm honored. The space is only as good as the people who show up and who talk. I'm just a facilitator, and there's always really incredible people that come up again and again. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, John, if there's anything I can say, it's that the future of marketing is in authenticity and compassion, because with the power of AI and the way that it's going to scale between what we have in the regular GPTs, the custom GPTs, and now with the agents and the agentic workflows and all this, that, and the other, it's only 2025. So by the time we have 2030, and we're not even talking about actually having robots in the mix of things. So that's another conversation. But at the end of the day, the best thing that you can do for your success is to be as human as possible, and to be yourself as possible, and to be as knowledgeable on AI as possible. And as we move forward through the trends of humanity and society and business and how it all fluctuates, just be ready to adapt. But AI is here to stay. But I think it's just as simple as Bluetooth having a baby with Wi-Fi. So do with that as you will.
Let's go.